Hey everyone, it's Tobes, and welcome to your second monitor. Today is the next video in my series of Marvel Superheroes Commander deck techs. I'm releasing a new Marvel Commander deck every Thursday through mid-August when the Hobbit set drops, in addition to my usual Monday Commander deck tech videos. It's Marvel, so we're gonna have fun with it. As you see, today our commander is Taskmaster, Mercenary Mimic. Thanks to InKing727 for requesting this commander, and happy birthday to you. Anthony Masters is a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who became a mercenary, assassin, and a trainer of criminal underlings. He possesses photographic reflexes, an ability to copy any physical motions he observes with unparalleled accuracy. I was first introduced to this power set in the character Echo from Daredevil, but Taskmaster seems like a cool version of it. Anything you can do, he can do at least as well. I'm excited to show you what I put together for Taskmaster, but before we get started, let's go over our deck building template. I like to build my decks around my commander. I want to show off why it's such a great card and why I thought it deserved a deck of its own. So I take about 30 cards and put them toward doing whatever my commander asks of me. This is our game plan. It's what we do at the table and how we try to win. 30 more cards go towards supporting that game plan in the form of card advantage, acceleration, and interaction pieces. I usually run 1 or 2 sweepers, sometimes more if it would play into the game plan, sometimes none at all, and I almost always keep to a floor of 38 lands. That way I can always hit my land drops and cast my spells and, play commander. So let's talk about our commander. Taskmaster Mercenary Mimic is a 3/5 legendary human mercenary villain for 2, a blue, and a black with photographic reflexes. At the beginning of our first main phase, until our next turn, Taskmaster becomes a copy of up to 1 target creature on the battlefield or creature card in a graveyard, except his name is Taskmaster Mercenary Mimic, and he's a legendary human mercenary villain creature. So if you're expecting this deck to be a clones deck, you're sort of right. But rather than trying to build ourselves a board of body doubles all doing the same thing, I wanted to focus more on Taskmaster's frustrations with his minion trainees. He's good at copying the moves of an enemy, but when you make a copy of a copy, it's never as good as the original. So this deck is pretty frantic. We want to get our commander out as soon as possible and put cool creatures in our yard to turn him into, at least for a turn cycle. Taskmaster keeps his own name, so there's no worrying about the legend rule, but like I said, we aren't trying to make a bunch of extras of him. Instead, we're taking advantage of whatever sweet abilities Taskmaster takes on, and to use them to our best advantage that turn, all while trusting that next turn we'll have an even better idea available to us by the start of our first main phase. We want to be an adaptable, unpredictable threat at the table, with our strategy something our opponents can't pin down. To that end, we are running just as many cards that mill ourselves as cards that mill our opponents. Taskmaster can, of course, copy a creature in play, but if we want more tools in our toolbox, 4 graveyards giving us options are better than 1, or just the battlefield. We get to feel like a mastermind villain, keeping tabs on everyone's yards so that we know what will be the strongest or scariest, or just the most fun creature for us to copy on our upcoming turn, and we use that information accordingly to execute our master plans. Our Taskmaster plans? Our master tasks? You get it. We have a few surprises along the way too. Cards that care about being in the graveyard themselves, cards that count the number of cards in our graveyards, cards that incentivize our opponents to throw away their best stuff, cards that bring our creatures, or even other non-creatures, back from the bin, and cards that can make our commander or our copies hard to stop, or at least unpleasant to. We even have a few backgrounds from Baldur's Gate to ensure Taskmaster is dangerous no matter what face he wears, and we have 1 card that pumps out token copies every turn to represent Taskmaster's trainees finally graduating from his instruction. He may have to struggle in the meantime, carrying the team on his own while the henches practice what he's taught them, but he never fails to complete a mission. As long as he can collect his fee, any job he's given will be one to which he's up to the task. You'll enjoy this deck if you like the idea of playing a different way every game because half the cards you play are from your opponent's decks. Or if you like puzzling your way through each turn with full confidence that by the end of it, you'll have taken your opponents to task. Wah wah. So, as usual, this Moxfield list we're going over today is linked in the video's description. At the bottom of it, you will find a considering section filled with cards that I considered putting in this deck, but ultimately which didn't make the cut for me. However, if you have a bigger budget, or a smaller one, although our budget is pretty small today, if you like what I've done here and you want to go harder into it, or if you're interested in some of the things I've done but you want to take them in a different direction, that considering section is a great place to begin when you build your own Taskmaster Mercenary Mimic deck. So we're going to begin with our mill section. These are all cards that, one way or another, put cards in our opponent's graveyards. Most of them actually do mill our opponents, like the classic Hedron Crab that we're about to look at. There are a few cards in this section that have other ways of putting cards in our opponent's graveyards, like hand attack type things. which we're not too heavy onto, but I put them into the same category just as a shorthand for how do we fill up our opponent's graveyards. This is the section for that. So, Hedron Crab. A single blue for an 0/2 crab with landfall. Whenever a land we control enters, target player mills 3 cards. This is a great one because if we have an opponent who has a creature-heavy deck and they're full of really sweet creatures, we might be hitting them with this every time we have land enter and putting cards in their graveyard so that we can have our commander copy them. But because Hedron Crab says target player, not target opponent, we can choose ourselves with this if maybe we've done surveilling or scrying and we know that there's a card on top of our library, or we just suspect that there might be, that we want in our graveyard to get ready for Taskmaster. Hedron Crab works both ways. Like it. We have the newer Ruin Crab as well. This is an 0/3 crab for also a single blue that says landfall whenever a land we control enters, each opponent mills 3 cards. So this is milling 3 and it hits all of our opponents, but we can't target ourselves with it and it doesn't cause us to mill as well. So this is just a mill effect for our opponents rather than one for ourselves. Both of these cards work well in our deck, so we're running them both. Next we have Cruel Somnophage from Wilds of Eldraine. This is an adventure creature. So Cruel Somnophage is 1 and a black for a star nightmare with power and toughness each equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards, which means if we cast this and there are no creatures in any graveyards, it's a 0/0 and it will die right away. Likewise, if there's only creature cards in one person's graveyard and then someone plays a Bojuka Bog and hits that person, well, Cruel Somnophage might die from that. Or something else we might want to look at is if we end up reanimating a creature from our graveyard and there just aren't any other creatures in any graveyards, including our own, it can kill our Somnophage. However, if we're doing plenty of mill, this can get bigger and bigger very quickly. But I know you're wondering, if you don't know what adventures are, what the heck is this blue part of the card? An adventure creature, like Cruel Somnophage, has another spell built onto it. While this is in your hand, you can either cast the Somnophage, and then you just sort of ignore this part, or you can cast this sorcery adventure called Can't Wake Up for 1 and a blue. If you do that, target player mills 4 cards, and then you exile this whole card, and you can cast the creature half of it from exile. You don't even have to wait for a later turn if you still have the mana in that same turn. However, you cannot cast Can't Wake Up once Cruel Somnophage is already on the battlefield. You either need to send it on an adventure first and then have it return from the adventure, or just play it as a creature. So there you go. Criddle of Baldur's Gate is next. It might be Criddle. I think it's Criddle. I think most people say Criddle, but who talks about Adventures in the Forgotten Realms in order to say it? Good question. This is a blue and a black for a 1/3 legendary human elf rogue that says whenever Criddle deals combat damage to a player, that player loses a life and mills a card, and then we gain a life and so we scry one. So pretty nice little symmetrical thing. We have to be able to attack and hit with Criddle in order to do that, but it's sometimes possible for us. But even if we can't, Criddle says whenever we attack, we can pay 2 generic mana, and if we do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. This is a great effect to just sort of be here to make our commander unblockable. If we want to swing in with Taskmaster, when Taskmaster has become, I don't know, a copy of Galta Primal Hunger. You know, he may be a 12/12 trample at that point, but you know what's better than trample? Unblockable. And then we're hitting for 12 commander damage, and sometimes commander damage is how we win with this deck. It's not like our primary focus, because we just don't know what kind of cool stuff our opponents are going to be fielding, so we want to be flexible. And being flexible means being open to the idea that maybe that unblockability, either on our commander or on someone like Criddle itself, will be good for us. So yeah, we may be able to win with commander damage, but even if not, we've got lots of other fun things we can do. Oh, let's get rid of this. Next up, we have Nuclear Fallout. This is from, obviously, the Fallout decks, and it's one of our Wraths. X and double black for a sorcery that says each creature gets twice X, -X until end of turn. So as long as we pump that X up high enough, we kill everything in play, including things that are indestructible, because even indestructible things die if they have toughness 0 or less. And then each player gets X rad counters. What is a rad counter? Well, let's talk about it. Rad counters are a mechanic from the Fallout decks that are pretty sweet. We're going to see it here on the Radiation card. The way they work is these are counters that go on a player. Every player gets those rad counters, and then at the beginning of any player's pre-combat main phase, that player, if they have any rad counters, mills as many cards as they have rad counters. And for each non-land card they mill that way, they lose a rad counter and a life. So the idea is radiation goes away sometimes all at once, sometimes it takes several turns to go away at all, but when it does go away, it drains them for life, and they lose the counters. However, as long as they have it, they're going to be milling. And so that's why we like Nuclear Fallout in this deck as one of our wraths, because it gives us a way to mill opponents and ourselves, since everyone gets irradiated from the Nuclear Fallout. There we go. So yeah, we can give quite a few rad counters with that. Next up from Ether Drift is a card that we sometimes now see in Standard at time of recording. It's Recursion Monument. 1 and a blue for an artifact that says pay 1 and tap, and any number of target players each mills 2 cards. So we can get everyone, including ourselves, for a single mana and tap to mill 2. That's pretty good. And it has an exhaust ability, which means we can only activate this once ever while this card is in play. If it leaves play and it comes back, then we can activate it again because it's a new game object, but generally we're only getting to exhaust our monument once. For 2 and double blue, we tap it, and any number of target players each mill cards equal to the number of cards in their graveyard. Which means, if we have hit one of our opponents with one of the effects that says, affected player mills half their library, Recursion Monument is probably going to completely mill them out, which is not a thing we're looking to do generally in this deck. We just want to fill up graveyards and be able to do cool things with the creatures in them. So usually Recursion Monument is sort of our millstone for the deck, but it can hit multiple players. But it's nice to have the option to have somebody either mill themselves into the dirt or just mill quite a few cards. I mean, if somebody has 20 cards in their graveyard, we can double that, and that's only one time, but might as well hit every opponent with that. So the person who has 4 in their graveyard now has 8. The person who has 30 has 60 now. Pretty good either way. Of course, we can also use this at instant speed. So if an opponent has maybe brainstormed and stacked themselves up for something that they want later on, of course, we don't know if they're necessarily brainstorming cards that they want to get rid of, or if they're otherwise scrying, or if maybe they're having to play with the top card of their library revealed and there's something we just don't want them to have, that exhaust ability is a good way to get that into the graveyard if we don't want to just use the mill 2 cards effect. Good options either way. Also, I assume this is Subsunan, so Big Frog. Next up, we have the Ancient One from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. A blue and a black for an 8/8 legendary spirit god, but one that can't attack or block unless there are 8 or more permanent cards in our graveyard. Most of the cards in our deck are permanents. We have only 11 cards that aren't. And so we're actually running quite a few creatures, and we got a pretty nice curve in this deck, if you don't mind my saying so, as you've seen from all these 2-drop creatures. The Ancient One can get, with our self-mill, 8 or more permanents in our graveyard pretty easily, and then we've got a 2/2, we've got an 8/8 for 2, which is pretty good. But until we get to the point where the Ancient One can attack and block, it has the ability to let us pay 2, a blue and a black, to draw a card and then discard a card, so a nice loot, who wouldn't like that? And then when we discard a card this way, target player mills cards equal to that card's mana value. So we have quite a few 2-drops and 3-drops in this deck, but a lot of other cards that are higher mana value, and so we can use this to either mill an opponent or mill ourselves. Pretty good either way. Plus, if we're doing it to ourselves, it gets us closer to the Ancient One being able to attack and block. Next we have Court of Cunning. 1 and double blue for an enchantment that says when it enters, you become the monarch. If you don't know what the monarch is, here's the way this works. It's essentially 2.5 rules altogether that make just a much more fun experience at the commander table. One rule is, if you are the monarch, which is just a status that a player can have, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. So that's the reward for being the monarch. It's good to be the king. And if you play a card that says you become the monarch, or if you are the monarch, or rather, if you deal combat damage to the monarch, you become the monarch. The ways to become the monarch are doing combat damage to the current monarch, or playing a card like Court of Cunning that says you become the monarch. So normally, the way that the monarchy gets passed around at the table is by people attacking the monarch, and then being attacked because they are the monarch so that someone else can take it. Everyone wants an extra card during their end step, so it pushes the game to get players attacking each other and making deals and making trades, and it just moves the game along. It's a lot of fun. In addition, Court of Cunning says at the beginning of your upkeep, any number of target players each mill 2 cards, and we get to choose which players those are. But if we're the monarch, each of those players mills 10 cards instead. So again, this can hit us as well, but if we want, we can make all of our opponents mill 2 or mill 10, if we're the Monarch. Pretty good. Plus, we get to draw a card just having played this, because the turn we play it, we're going to be the Monarch at our end step. So yeah. Next up, we have a battle. Battles are sweet from March of the Machine. I'm going to explain how battles work first. This is a siege battle. The way this works is it costs 1, a blue, and a black for the Invasion of Amonkhet, and it comes in with 4 defense counters on it. We control it, but we choose an opponent who will protect it. And then, anyone but that opponent can attack it, including us. When an opponent attacks, or when a player attacks it, including us, the protecting opponent can block those creatures, sort of like they were blocking us attacking a planeswalker they control. And when anyone, which it could be one of our opponents, or probably is going to be us, because who else is going to waste their attacks on something that's just going to help us? When Invasion of Amonkhet takes combat damage, or any damage, like you can lightning bolt this sort of thing, it will lose these defense counters. And once it has lost all of them, it is defeated, and at that point we exile it and we cast it transformed for free, since it has no mana cost. The way you cast it is by defeating it. So when it first comes in, we choose an opponent to protect it, we try to attack it, which is usually not that hard, especially with our commander, for us to defeat it. We can even make a deal with an opponent and say, look, I'll leave you alone for 2 turn cycles if I make you the protector of this and you don't block when I attack it. That's usually a deal people are willing to make because battles don't see that much play in Commander, and it's a shame because they're really fun. But what does it actually give us? Well, when it first comes in, each player mills 3 cards, and then each opponent discards a card, and we draw a card. So we get to replace Invasion of Amonkhet in our hand, we get to put 3 cards in the graveyard, every other player puts 4 cards in the graveyard, 3 from the top of their library and 1 from their hand. So a little bit of hand attack. It's not something I usually do in Commander because people just don't enjoy it, but it's a little incidental in this case, and so that's fine. Then when we defeat the Invasion of Amonkhet, it transforms, or not transforms, so we get to cast it transformed as Lazotep Convert, a 4/4 zombie that says we may have it enter as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard, not on the battlefield. Except that it's a 4/4 black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So it's almost the same as we basically get to eternalize a creature in a graveyard. And because it says a graveyard, not just your graveyard, we can get one of our opponent's creatures or we can get one of our own. Either way, we get the thing that we like the best, and the only differences between whatever that card is and our convert is that our version is 4/4 and is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. Pretty neat. Next up, we have Raul, or perhaps it's Raul, Troubleshooter. I have not played this version of Fallout, or have I? Is this someone from... I've only played New Vegas. Anyway, don't know who this is. It's a ghoul though. 1, a blue, and a black for a 1/4 legendary zombie mutant rogue that says, once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from among cards in your graveyard that were milled this turn. And tap, and each player mills a card. Again, this counts us as well, which means every turn we can mill a card, and it's as though we drew it, as long as it is, of course, a spell. If we mill a land, we don't get to do that. But we can cast anything that we have, any spells that we've milled, whether it's from Raul's ability or any other form. So usually, I mean, sometimes we can miss with this. If we activate it, everyone mills, we mill a land, so we don't have anything extra to cast that turn. But it does get our opponents milling cards every turn, so a little bit of nice millstone action for us as well. And if we don't want to take the chance of being able to cast that with Raul's first ability, we can hold him up as a nice blocker and then activate this during an opponent's turn. And of course we can cast a spell if we happen to cast something, we can cast at instant speed. But at the very least, we can mill something on an opponent's turn if we want to be able to hold up Raul as a blocker, or if we want to just be able to sort of mess with someone who has set up the top of their library, and we can choose to mill their top card, in response, that kind of deal. Next up is the Mind Skinner. I love this card. I built a standard deck with this card in it. It was fine. This is triple blue for a 10/1 legendary enchantment creature Nightmare that cannot be blocked. 10/1 that can't be blocked sounds pretty good, right? It's not. It says if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards. Notably, it does not say doesn't say combat damage, but it does prevent the damage. It doesn't just turn it into another form the way that something like Infect would. This actually makes all of our damage go away and turn into mill, which can be pretty cool, don't get me wrong, but being able to like use the Mind Skinner sometimes and otherwise not use it is probably what we want it for. Luckily, we can do that in this deck if we get the Mind Skinner into the graveyard, either because it died in combat, or just died to a removal effect since it can't be blocked in combat, or simply because we got it into our graveyard by looting it away or milling it. At which point, the start of our pre-combat main phase, we can just use Taskmaster to have him become the Mind Skinner, which lets us swing in unblockably for 10 mill damage. It doesn't do actual commander damage, unfortunately, but it does mill our opponent, and that's pretty sweet. So being able to do that unblockably with our commander every turn that we want to, and then just not using Taskmaster in that same way the times that we don't want to use him that way, seems pretty good to me. All right, next up we have Dreamborn Muse. You're familiar with Windborn Muse and maybe Seedborn Muse. This is the blue version, I believe. So this is 2 and double blue for a 2/2 spirit that says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player mills a number of cards equal to the number of cards in their hand. So that's great. It affects us too, but it's sort of symmetrical in that way. So anyone who's got a lot of cards in hand, when they start their upkeep, is going to have to mill that many cards. So this is a great way to repeatedly get our opponents milling, in addition to being a little bit of an annoying, easy to remove creature that isn't a problem, but will feel like one to our opponents who don't like mill, which means the Dreamborn Muse is also removal bait. It's a magnet for people casting their Swords to Plowshares, which gives us a land, or casting their Doomblade, which wouldn't have been able to kill our commander anyway, but isn't going to be pointed at any of our other mono blue creatures. So removal bait, in addition to repeatable mill that also affects us, pretty great. Next up, we have another card that was in that Mind Skinner deck, a card I love, Consuming Aberration. 3, a blue and a black for a star horror with power and toughness, each equal to the number of cards in our opponent's graveyards. So again, if our opponents don't have any cards in their graveyards, any of them, then Consuming Aberration is a 0/0 and it dies. But as long as there's at least one opponent with at least one card in their graveyard, Consuming Aberration gets to stay. And it's likely going to get bigger because whenever we cast a spell, any time, any kind of spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land, then puts those cards into their graveyard. Meaning each opponent mills themselves until they get to a land, and also puts that land in the graveyard as well. So they're going to miss out on their next land unless it was right under that one. So plus all the cards they milled on the way there, which makes Consuming Aberration even bigger. And yeah, it's pretty great. Being able to use Consuming Aberration with Criddle, who is here, and make the Consuming Aberration unblockable, pretty scary. Like that. Next we have Extract from Darkness. 3, a blue and a black, for a sorcery that makes each player, including us, mill 2 cards, and then we put a creature card from a graveyard, doesn't have to be ours, onto the battlefield under our control. This is great. It's the classic 5-mana black reanimate spell, but a single pip of it is blue in addition, and we get an everyone mills something, and it affects every graveyard that we can get into. So great, Extract from Darkness is one of our couple of ways that we can recur a card from our graveyard or steal something from an opponent's graveyard. We're not doing a whole lot of that in this deck, but we've got clones that do it, our commander kind of does it, we might as well do it in the classic reanimate style as well. Sure. Next is Mirko Vosk, Mind Drinker. This is 3, a blue and a black, for a 2/4 legendary vampire with flying that says whenever Mirko Vosk deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal 4 land cards, then puts those cards into their graveyard. That means they have to mill until they find their 4th land, and then all 4 lands plus every other card that they milled is in the graveyard now. So this is a huge amount of mill if we can get Mirko to do some damage to a player, which is terrific. We're likely going to be able to because Mirko flies. And again, if we want to use Criddle or one of our other unblockable effects for Mirko, it's not a bad choice to do so because we get an awful lot of good value into their graveyard from that. Next is Nemesis of Reason. Oh, I guess I should also mention, Consuming Aberration looks pretty scary, right? What if we were to make our commander into it? Mirko Vosk does an awful lot, right? What if that damage it's doing is commander damage? What if Consuming Aberration what if we have Criddle in play? We turn Taskmaster into Consuming Aberration, and it's got like power and toughness 38, 38. It's not unlikely to happen. We swing in, someone dies from commander damage immediately. We swing in with Mirko Vosk, or rather Taskmaster cosplaying as Mirko Vosk, and we mill the heck out of someone so that we can turn Taskmaster into something from that opponent's graveyard next turn. Lots of great things that we can do here. These are cool cards, and I keep showing them to you. And we have to remember that our commander could be any of these cards for a turn cycle. Because remember, what's great about our commander is Taskmaster doesn't just become a copy of a target creature on the battlefield or creature card in a graveyard until end of turn. It's until our next turn. So Taskmaster is going to be the Mind Skinner for a whole turn cycle, or Mirko Vosk, or Consuming Aberration, or Nemesis of Reason. Just something worth remembering. Nemesis of Reason is 3 a blue and a black for a 3/7 Leviathan Horror that says whenever this creature attacks, defending player mills 10 cards. It doesn't even have to hit. So this might be 10 cards, could be more than what Mirko Vosk does, could be less. It's still a solid amount, and with a toughness this high, it means we can attack with the Nemesis of Reason and with Taskmaster as the Nemesis of Reason, and then maybe we attack 2 different opponents. Maybe they're not likely to be able to kill our commander or the original Nemesis because of our high toughness, and both of those opponents now have 10 cards in their graveyards that we can use for Taskmaster next turn. Next up is Sir Conrad the Grim, a classic. Sir Conrad is 3 and double black for a 5/4 legendary human knight that does this. Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. Notably, that is damage. That is not what you're used to seeing on a lot of black cards, which is, causes each opponent to lose 1 life, that sort of thing. So remember that this is damage because the Mind Skinner replaces this with mill, something we're thinking about. But when does Sir Conrad do that damage to each opponent? Well, when one of 3 things happens. When any other creature dies, doesn't have to be one of ours, so this is like a Blood Artist. When any creature card is put into a graveyard from somewhere other than the battlefield, meaning if any creature card is milled, if any creature card is discarded, if any creature card, returns to the graveyard from exile. As long as a creature card went to the graveyard, either from somewhere other than the battlefield or from the battlefield, which is what dying is, Sir Conrad's going to ping each opponent. Or if a creature card leaves our graveyard, it has to be our graveyard, but if a creature card leaves our graveyard, Sir Conrad's also going to ping our opponents. So if we have a way to reanimate one of our creatures, like we just saw a moment ago with our Extract from Darkness, then that's going to trigger Sir Conrad. But usually in this deck, what Sir Conrad is going to see is creatures getting killed and creatures getting milled, and that's going to do a bunch of damage to our opponents. And we can pay 1 and a black, and each player mills a card. So that's everyone, including us, and that's pretty sweet. And of course, triggers Sir Conrad's first ability if any of those cards are creatures. Next we have Geth, Lord of the Vault. 4 and double black for a 5/5 legendary Phyrexian zombie with Intimidate. Intimidate is sort of proto-Menace. It's an improvement on Fear, but it's not quite as good as Menace. Or is not the same as Menace, kind of. This creature cannot be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a color with it, which means Geth can't be blocked by creatures that aren't artifacts or black creatures. So if an opponent has a colorless creature that's not an artifact, if they have a non-artifact, blue, black, red creature, whatever it may be, as long as that creature doesn't have black and or isn't an artifact creature, Geth's unblockable. And a 5/5 unblockable is pretty good already, but it also has an ability that's an activated ability that doesn't require Geth to tap. So we can use it in addition to attacking with Geth if we want to. And that ability is, for X and a black, put target artifact or creature card with mana value X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and then that player mills X cards. So yes, we are saying, hey, what's the mana value of that huge creature in your graveyard? Well, we're going to pay a single additional black mana on top of that an amount of mana genericized, steal that creature or artifact, and then you have to mill cards equal to its mana value. Oh, and what are you playing? Blue-red? Okay, well, we attack with our unblockable Intimidate creature. Oh, you have an artifact creature? I guess it wasn't unblockable. You get it. Nice. Next up is Singularity Rupture. This is our other Wrath. 3 a blue and double black for a sorcery that destroys all creatures and then causes any number of target players, each, to mill half their library rounded down. So that rounded down can be an impact. Maybe we hit them with this and the Recursion Monument, and they have one more card left in their library. It's possible. This does blow up our creatures, but it's a board wipe. That's what it's meant to do. And what's great about this is, not only does it mill everyone, but it also destroys their creatures, which means we just have to recast Taskmaster, and now Taskmaster probably has a bunch of sweet creatures that he can become copies of, since those creatures are all dead from Singularity Rupture. Thanks, Edge of Eternities. Fleet Swallower is next. 5 and double blue for a 6/6 fish. When it attacks, target player mills half their library rounded up. This is the same kind of thing we were just talking about a moment ago. This is rounded up rather than rounded down, the way the Singularity Rupture is, so it can work pretty nicely for us with that Recursion Monument. But yeah, it's especially nice that it's target player mills half their library, not defending player. So we can attack opponent A with this, and we've got a 6/6 fish coming at him, and then make opponent B mill half their library. Pretty good. Next up is Sadek, Lord of Secrets. I believe it's Sadek. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Some people say it like there's no S, like it's Zadok, but I think it's Sadek. Yeah. Anyway, this is the original Lord of the Dimir Guild on Ravnica, I believe. So, a 5/5 legendary vampire with flying for 3 double blue and double black, a 7-mana creature. So probably we want to get this in our graveyard and just have Taskmaster become a copy of it. But it's a 5/5 flyer that says, if Zadok would deal combat damage to a player, instead, put that many 1/1 counters on Zadok, and that player mills that many cards. So we're doing the sort of mind skinner thing, where the damage we do is dealt in the, it's not really dealt, it's kind of prevented. It's, if it would do damage, it's prevented, and instead that player mills that many cards, but we also get that many 1/1 counters. This is great on Zadok himself, but it's really great on Taskmaster, because Taskmaster becomes a flying 5/5, does that damage, gets 5 1/1 counters on him, and then at the start of our next turn, he's Taskmaster again. But he keeps those counters. So maybe we want him to, at the start of our first main phase, become Zadok again. We'll still keep the counters. Or maybe we want him to become something else, but again, he keeps the counters. Plus, they had to mill that much when we hit. Pretty neat. Finally, we have one that I've used a lot. It's Tarisian Mindbreaker. This is 7 generic mana for a 6/4 artifact creature, Juggernaut, that when it attacks, the defending player mills half their library rounded up. So this is defending player, but it's also rounded up. So a nice way to get someone to completely fill their graveyard, or like halfway fill their graveyard, I should say, with half of their library, which gives us an awful lot of options for the next time we want Taskmaster to become something. And the Mindbreaker has Unearth for 1 and triple blue, meaning we can, while this is in our graveyard, spend 1 and triple blue to return it to the graveyard, from the graveyard to the battlefield. It'll get haste, and the next time it would go to any other zone, and at our next end step, it goes to exile. So as long as it gets to the end step, it goes to exile. If it would go to any other zone because someone kills it or somebody tries to bounce it, whatever it may be, it goes to exile instead. We only get 1 extra bite at the apple, and of course only at sorcery speed, but when we do that, it gains haste so it can attack 1 last time and have a player mill half their library. Now notably, if I haven't said it already, I don't think I have, when you have someone mill half their library, it means mill half of the cards remaining in their library, not half of the size of their deck. It's not like you attack with the Mindbreaker once, they mill 50 cards, no matter how many are left in their deck, simply because it was a 100-card deck. So if they're down to 80 cards, they're going to mill 40. You attack again, they're going to have to mill half of that, half of whatever they have left, which is going to be less than 40 because they will have drawn a card in the intervening time before we can attack again, but you see. However, the Unearth effect, or ability on Tarisian Mindbreaker, is something that we might use, but it's fine to also leave the Mindbreaker in our graveyard and just let Taskmaster become a copy of it and fill up an opponent's graveyard when Taskmaster attacks as a 6/4. Nice. And that covers our mill section. I want to look at the other half of our game plan, same number of cards in it, because these are the cards that let us put cards in our graveyard. I just called it the graveyard section, but you could call this the self-mill section, but again, not all of these cards are actually milling. Like we saw before, at least one of those cards required an opponent to discard cards. The same is true here. So Hedron Crab, of course, we've already seen, we can target ourselves and mill 3 cards when we make landfall. Bitter Triumph is 1 and a black for an instant that, as an additional cost, we must either pay 3 life or discard a card. A great way for us to destroy a creature or planeswalker and get a creature into our graveyard that, at the start of our next first main phase, our commander can become. Nice. And if we don't have a card we want to get rid of, we can always just pay 3 life. That's fine too. We've seen the Somnophage. It lets target player mill 4 cards. We can target ourselves with its Adventure Can't Wake Up. Deranged Assistant is 1 and a blue for a 1/1 human wizard that says tap and mill a card to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. That's great. That's a mana dork that we can use in blue that also mills us, so fills our graveyard and gives us some mana. And amazing Nilsham art. Love this card. We have the Key to the City next. This is 2 generic for an artifact that if we tap it and discard a card, it's a good way to get cards in our graveyard, then up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. This is awesome for us because it doesn't just say our creatures or an attacking creature on our combat. We can use this to, of course, make our commander unblockable, which, remember, unblockable also means they can't die from blocking damage. So it's also a protective effect, but it guarantees damage from either our commander, one of our other creatures, or we can use this on an opponent's creature. We can use it politically, one way, by saying, hey, opponent A, I know you want to attack opponent B, but you're worried about them blocking. Well, I will discard a card and activate my Key to the City to make your commander or your big creature or whatever unblockable this turn, as long as you agree that we're friends for the next turn cycle or 2, or whatever it may be. We get a little consideration out of our deal. And the opponent will say, that sounds great, go ahead and activate it. And we say, no, 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 no. We're not going to make your creature unblockable until we know you're not attacking us with it. You have to attack first and trust that we will activate the Key to the City before blocks are declared. And they'll say, okay, I'm going to trust you. I declare an attack with my commander, and we'll say, great, before blocks, we're going to activate Key to the City, discard some card that we probably want to get back or turn our commander into anyway, and then we make your attacking creature unblockable. And opponent B is like, hey, what the heck? Why would you do that? And we say, you're our opponent too. I mean, we don't have to say that. That's a little rude. But yeah, the idea behind this, of course, is it's getting us a little bit of alliance with one player that helps take the pressure off of us from that player, and uses their combat to tap down one of their creatures, which is, if it didn't have vigilance, which now means a creature that can't block us, and gets them to use their combat to do damage to one of our other opponents. And all of that just by tapping Key to the City and not paying any mana to do so, and getting to put a card in our graveyard that we probably want there anyway. The other way to use this, beyond just using it for our creatures or politically with an opponent's creature, is to use it on an opponent's creature even when they don't make a deal with you. We can either offer the deal and still use it after they reject it, or we can just not offer the deal at all. Maybe opponent B attacks opponent C, and we're like, that's an awful lot of damage that one creature will do. Too bad that opponent C is going to block it. So we just pipe up while they're moving to their blockers, and we say, before blockers, I've got an effect. Activate Key to the City, make that creature unblockable. And both opponents, the attacker and the defender, are going to be like, wait, what? Because no one will expect it to happen. It happens more than you think, but so infrequently at tables that I've seen do people interact with a combat that they're not a part of, or that a combat that's not going to cause the game to change in a significant way that would affect them. But remember, an opponent's attacks can be to your benefit if they're going at a different opponent, which is why you want to incentivize opponents to not come at you, not just to protect yourself, but to harm your other opponents. Key to the City lets you do that even if you're not doing it in a political way. Pretty good. And all of that said, whenever this artifact becomes untapped, you can pay 2 generic and draw a card. So we throw a card away to make something unblockable, but then we can pay 2 to get that card back, or to get a card back to replace that card during our after we've untapped this, during our upkeep. So we like the idea of paying 2 for Criddle to make something unblockable. This is essentially doing the same thing. It costs us a card that we want in our graveyard, and we get that card back when we pay that 2. Key to the City is awesome. Next up, we have Millikan. This is sort of like our Deranged Assistant. It's 2 generic for a 0/1 artifact creature construct that if we tap it and mill a card, we add a colorless mana. So great. Same cost as our Assistant, 1 less power, but we don't have to have blue in order to cast it. Nice. when I say same cost, it's the same mana value. There you go. Nuclear Fallout makes each player get rad counters, so each player is going to be milling. Recursion Monument, like I mentioned before, can hit any number of target players and cause them to mill 2 cards or mill half their library. I guess we can hit ourselves with it. Didn't talk about that before, but it's an option. The Ancient one can have us draw a card and then discard a card, and then when we discard a card this way, target player mills cards equal to its mana value. Us discarding or drawing and discarding is us putting a card in our graveyard. We can target ourselves with the second half of this ability if we want to, but we can also target someone else and it still counts for us. Next we have Cemetery Tampering from Streets of New Capenna. I love this card. I think it's super cool. It is not Rites of Undeath. I believe that Rites of Undeath is the name of the 1 and a black enchantment from Modern Horizons 3, which costs monetarily a lot more than this. This costs 1 more mana, but it's a lot cheaper and it's pretty sweet. This is an enchantment with Hideaway 5, which means when it comes in, we look at the top 5 of our library and we exile one of them face down under Cemetery Tampering, and we put the rest on the bottom in a random order. And then at the beginning of our upkeep, we can mill 3 cards, which we basically always will do. And then, after we've done that, if there are 20 or more cards in our graveyard, we can cast the Hideaway card for free, right then as part of this resolution. So eventually, we find our buried treasure by burying it more. I guess the analogy falls apart. Cemetery Tampering, though, is pretty fun, because remember, even after we've cast that Hideaway card, it's still going to remain on the battlefield, giving us the option to mill 3 at the start of every upkeep. Right. Evasion of Amonkhet, as we've seen before, can have us, it causes each player to mill 3 cards, and then each opponent discards and we draw. But we are part of the people that are discarding cards. Next we have our Planeswalker for the deck. This is Kaito Cunning Infiltrator from Foundations. 1 and double blue for a 3 loyalty Kaito Planeswalker with a static ability. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we put a loyalty counter on Kaito. So easy to get more loyalty counters on Kaito than just this 1 per turn. But if we do the +1, then up to 1 target creature we control can't be blocked this turn, and we draw and we discard. So we get to loot, which means card selection but also graveyard filling for us, and makes one of our creatures, perhaps our commander, unblockable. If we -2 Kaito, we get a 2/1 ninja, with or there's just a blue ninja creature token. And if we're able to get Kaito up to 9 loyalty, then we can -9 him to get an emblem with whenever a player casts a spell, we make a 2/1 blue ninja creature token. Usually this ultimate is not what we're going for in this deck, but heck, if you can get there, great. Sometimes you just don't need these tokens because you've got a bunch of sweet big creatures, especially in this deck, which is a little heavy on creatures. And so we can just make something unblockable every turn and just keep looting every turn. In addition, when we make something unblockable, it's going to do combat damage to a player, so it's going to put another loyalty counter on Kaito. It is possible, although not likely, to be able to ultimate him, and then we're just making ninjas constantly, which is sort of like the factory for all of Taskmaster's little minions. Neat. We've seen Raoul, which lets each player mill a card when we tap it. The Warring Triad we haven't seen. This is sort of like our Millikan, but as a manalith. This is 3 generic mana for a 5/5 legendary artifact creature god with flying, trample, and haste. So 5/5 flying, trample, haste for 3? Pretty good, but what's the catch? Well, it's sort of like the Ancient one. As long as there are fewer than 8 cards in your graveyard, the Warring Triad isn't a creature. It's just a legendary artifact. But it keeps this ability: tap and mill a card, target player adds 1 mana of any color. So this is a nice way for us to put cards in our graveyard and to be a little bit political if we want. We don't have to be the one that adds this mana. And if we don't need that mana during our turn, it's worth it to just hold up the Warring Triad and say to a player, hey, if you need an extra mana, what are you willing to give me for it? I can give you 1. It'll cost me a card in my library into my graveyard, but I'm willing to tap the Warring Triad and help you out if we are friends. Are we friends? Seems fun. Next is Victimize. 2 and a black for a sorcery that says choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, then sacrifice a creature, and if you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. This is one of our other recursion effects. Obviously, we get to bring 2 things back by sacrificing 1 thing, which is great. Now, it is worth noting, you are choosing 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, and then sacking a creature. So there's no tricky way to read this so that you're able to sack a creature and then bring back it and another creature. You've got to choose the 2 cards, and there have to be 2, in your graveyard before you sacrifice something that's already in play. But at least you're cashing in 1 thing to get 2 things back hopefully that you didn't have to pay mana for because they didn't go to the graveyard from the battlefield. They went because you discarded them or because you milled them. Yeah, nice. We've seen the Dreamborn Muse makes everyone put cards into their graveyard during their upkeep equal to the number of cards they have in hand. We haven't seen Lethal Scheme, which has some Marvel superheroes extra, a new printing, a new art is what I'm trying to say. This is 2 in double black for an instant with Convoke. Convoke meaning we can cast it, and we can, when we cast it, if we don't want to pay mana for the generic costs, we can tap creatures. And if we don't want to pay mana for the black costs, we can tap creatures. It's just that every creature we tap either pays a single generic or 1 mana of that creature's colors, which means if we have creatures that are colorless or mono blue, they can only pay for the generic cost. But any of our black creatures we tap can pay for either the generic costs or the black pips. So we could cast Lethal Scheme by just tapping 4 creatures, as long as at least 2 of those creatures are black. Nice. What does it do though? It's an instant that destroys a creature or planeswalker, and then each creature that convoked it connives. To connive is to draw a card and then discard a card, and if the creature that is conniving, if the card we discarded for them is a non-land, they get a 1/1 counter. So it's to our benefit to convoke as much of Lethal Scheme as we can. It does make our creatures tapped down, but when we do that, we're not just getting good card selection from the connive, we're also filling our graveyard and probably putting counters on some or all of those creatures. Nice. Next up is Angel of Suffering, another really sweet one from Streets of New Capenna. 3 in double black for a 5/3 Nightmare Angel with flying that says, if damage would be dealt to you, prevent that damage, and mill twice that many cards. So yes, Toilet Paper Angel can kill you. We can end up milling our entire library and then dying because we've decked out before we actually die from any damage. But it is possible that this can sure help us and protect us for a certain time. And remember, the longer we can go on, the more cards are going to end up in our library from the Angel of Suffering, and so the more options we have to find exactly the right thing that we need to be able to copy with Taskmaster. So this is a balance that we have to strike here, but it's a balance that's worth striking, and it's pretty fun. Next up is Extract from Darkness. We've already seen it makes each player mill 2. Sir Conrad, we can pay 1 in a black to make each player mill 1. Singularity Rupture can make it makes any number of players mill half their library when it destroys all creatures. And Fleet Swallower can, when it attacks, make target player put the top half of their library into their graveyard, which can be us if we want it to be. So yeah. And that covers all of the cards in our graveyard section, and it covers all of our mill and our self-mill and everything that fills graveyards. I'm going to go on to the next section, but first, if you feel like liking the video, this is my reminder to do so. It's the call to action. Welcome to being a YouTube video. Yeah, if you want to like the video, if you want to subscribe to the channel, I would love it if you would. You don't have to. I appreciate you being here either way. Thank you for watching. So let's move on to our sections of support for our game plan. We're going to start, as we usually do, with our card advantage section. As usual, I have tagged these cards as draw. They don't all do the draw a card action, they just give us access to more cards, although many of them do draw us a card. For example, Baleful Strix. A blue and a black for a 1/1 artifact creature bird. It has flying, it has death touch, and when it enters, it draws us a card. This card, if you're running a blue-black deck and you're not running Baleful Strix, I don't know what you're doing with your life, because this card is beautiful, it's incredibly useful, it's gonna attack and hit, because no one's gonna block a flyer with death touch. It's going to prevent people from attacking you, because if it's not tapped itself, it's a 1/1 death toucher, and it replaces itself when it first comes in. This card is so useful in so many places. We love this bird. We've seen Key to the City. When it becomes untapped, if we pay 2, we can draw a card. Mindstone is next. This is really more of a ramp piece, but we can cash it in for a card. For 2 generic, we get an artifact that taps for colorless, or we can pay 1, tap and sack it to draw. Usually, this is something we don't do unless it's late in the game, and we have plenty of mana, and we just don't need the Mindstone anymore for mana, so we can, like I said, cash it in for a card. Or if we happen to play it early, and we're just desperate for draw, which is not something that happens that much in this deck, but if it did, Mindstone is there for us, so it works for us both ways. Silent Hall Creeper is next. 1 and a blue for a 1/1 enchantment creature, horror, that cannot be blocked. Another card that's great for us to turn our commander into and be unblockable. it says whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, choose one of these that has not been chosen. Put 2 1/1 counters on it, draw a card, or it becomes a copy of another target creature you control. So let's just talk about the Hall Creeper. Let's say this is in play, we attack with it, we do combat damage, and when we do, we choose to draw a card. The next time we attack with it and do combat damage to a player, we can't choose to draw a card again. We have to choose one of the other two. And if we choose to put counters on it, now it's a 3/3, and the next time it does combat damage to a player, it will become another target creature we control forever. Because it's done. This does not say until end of turn, or until the end of your next turn, or whatever it is. It's just permanently that. Now, we can choose that first, and just eschew the possibility of getting counters in a card. Or we can do it second, whatever we want to do with this. Silent Hall Creeper helps us out either way with these options. Now let's talk about the Hall Creeper as though it's in the graveyard. When we have Taskmaster become the Hall Creeper, Taskmaster becomes, Taskmaster remains a card named Taskmaster Mercenary Mimic, remains a legendary human mercenary villain creature, but gets all the rest of this text. It becomes a 1/1, can't be blocked, and when Taskmaster does damage to a player, we get to choose one of these things. Let's say we choose to draw a card. Taskmaster is going to be that Hall Creeper until our next turn, and at the start of our next turn, we've got Taskmaster back. We go to our first main phase, Taskmaster triggers again, and we choose to be the Hall Creeper a second time. Now, Taskmaster has become the Hall Creeper a second time, and if we attack with him, we can choose to draw a card again, because this resets every time Taskmaster becomes the Hall Creeper. The best way to use this, if we are desperate for a card, that's fine, but it's to put counters on Taskmaster, because those counters are going to remain on him when he is Taskmaster, as printed, or when he is copying something else, whether it's the Hall Creeper or not. This is a way to repeatedly beef him up. But if we choose for Taskmaster to become the Hall Creeper, we attack with him, he's not blocked, he does combat damage to a player, and when he does, this trigger goes off, and we choose for Taskmaster to become a copy of another target creature we control, that will not end. That will be permanent. Because this will sort of overwrite Taskmaster's prior ability. It's not like all of Silent Hall Creeper's text exists on Taskmaster nested within Taskmaster's ability. So we gotta be careful. Don't misplay and have Taskmaster, have your commander become a permanent copy of something else you control unless you really want him to be that thing. Now, it's worth mentioning, when Taskmaster does combat damage, that is commander damage if it's being done to an opponent. It is commander damage if Taskmaster is himself, if he is Taskmaster but is copying something else, or if Taskmaster has just become a copy of something else thanks to Silent Hall Creeper's last ability. As long as the actual card that is our commander, that piece of cardboard that is designated as our commander, is doing combat damage to a player, it doesn't matter what form that card is taking, that card itself is our commander. So if Taskmaster copies Galta, Taskmaster's a 12/12 trample and is going to do whatever damage it does to an opponent as commander damage, whether that's due to Taskmaster's ability or becoming that thing permanently. It's worth noting. Alright, the Ancient One lets us draw and discard. We have a couple of these loot effects, which I normally would not put in my card advantage section because they're not actual card advantage. They end us up with the same number of cards available to us as we had before. But in this section, in this deck, or decks like this, that's not exactly true, because the cards we put in our graveyard are still available to us, at the very least, by becoming something that by being something Taskmaster can become. So this kind of card selection is advantage for us in this deck. It's not as strong as if it was just draw a card, but it's worth remembering that that's how it works here. Cemetery Tampering likewise doesn't draw us a card, but when its upkeep trigger triggers, and we mill 3 cards, and we have 20 or more cards in our graveyard, whether or not we mill, if when its trigger is resolving we have 20 or more cards in our graveyard, we can play the Hideaway card. That's us getting access to a card we didn't have. Court of Cunning draws us a card at the end of our turn that we play it, because we'll be the Monarch then. And since it starts the Monarchy, it might draw us more cards later. Invasion of Amonkhet, of course, makes everyone mill 3 when it comes in, then each opponent discards 1, and we draw 1. Kaido, also, for his +1, can make one of our creatures unblockable this turn, and then we draw and discard. Pretty good. Raoul lets us tap him so that each player mills a card. And then during each of our turns, we can cast a spell from among cards in our graveyard that we were milled that turn. So as long as we milled a non-land, Rawl has given us the ability to cast it. So it's sort of like impulse draw for us. Pretty good. The Sad Robot is next. 4 generic mana for a 2/2 artifact creature, Golem, that when it enters, we get to Rampant Growth, if we want. It's a May. But our Rampant Growth is to search our library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. That's great. Helps us get more access to mana in our blue-black deck. And when the Sad Robot dies, we may draw a card. So not very easy to get card draw from the robot, but after the robot has already ramped us a little bit, it's willing to go to the graveyard and give us the chance to draw a card off of it. Next, we have the Clackbridge Troll from Throne of Eldraine, my favorite set. I love this card. I played I think a standard deck with it. It might have been a historic deck on Arena. Love this card though. This is 3 and double black for an 8/8 troll with trample and haste. So I know you're thinking, well, it's an 8/8 trample haste for 5, so of course there's a downside. And there is, but it's not like what we've seen before with the Warring Triad and the Ancient One. When the troll enters, target opponent makes 3/0/1 white goat creature tokens, because this is the 3-belly growth Gruff, before we had the Gruff triplets. And this scroll says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature of their choice, and if a player does, tap that creature. Or tap this creature, rather, and you gain 3 life and draw a card. So gain 3 life and draw a card is Revitalize. That's a free 2-mana spell. If an opponent sacrifices a creature. It's any opponent. Every one of our turns, at the start of our combat, any opponent can sack something. And we're giving one of our opponents some goats that they can sacrifice if they want to. They don't have to, though. And if they're opponent A, if they're the opponent to our left, maybe they say, no, I'm not going to choose to, pass priority. And now it's up to opponent B or opponent C to sacrifice something in order to keep our 8/8 trampling hasty creature from attacking. Now they don't know who it's going to come at. So maybe we make some deals with them, or maybe they want to make some deals with us. Or maybe we just swing in and destroy, you know? The Clackbridge Troll can be a lot of fun, whether it is giving us an 8/8 trampler to attack with, or getting rid of an opponent's blocker, at the very least, one of their little goats, but maybe one of their actual creatures, and then gaining us life and drawing us a card. And that's repeated every turn. So the Clackbridge Troll can either be a card advantage engine or just a way of doing a lot of damage. And if it's a card advantage engine, it's also a way to get our opponent's creatures into a graveyard, you know, at least if they're not willing to sacrifice tokens like these goats. I did not put it in to the mill section because for the same reason that I'm not putting any of my removal effects in this deck into the mill section, quote unquote, because they're not actually, even though they are ways to put cards in a graveyard, to put opponent's cards in a graveyard, particularly creatures, that's not the goal for it here. It's just an added benefit. So there you go. And finally, we've got Extract from Darkness, which has each player mill 2, and then we get to put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under our control, which is us stealing a card. So it's, it's like drawing a card. It's not exactly the same, but yeah, there we go. And that covers our card advantage section. Let's go now to our acceleration, which as usual, I've tagged as ramp. We are running Sol Ring. This is with one of the Marvel Sol Rings, Fantastic Four, I guess. This is 1 generic mana for an artifact that taps for 2 colorless. Great. We've got a lot of cards in our deck that are expensive, and even if we didn't, this accelerates us in ways that we want. So yeah, love Sol Ring. Gotta put it in your deck. Wayfarer's Bauble as well. This is a single generic mana for an artifact that if we pay 2 tap and sack it, we get to Rampant Growth. Rampant Growth is so strong as a way to just reliably get out the lands that we need in order to, you know, find our 3rd blue source to be able to cast the Mind Skinner, find our next black source so that we're able to cast our commander, maybe even a turn early. The fact that we have to pay a single more mana to cast the Wayfarer's Bauble than the 2 we do to crack it, which is the amount that we cast Rampant Growth for, is not bad, because we can split those up over the course of 2 turns. Like, Wayfarer's Bauble is a great turn 1 play, and then cracking it on turn 2 means we can play our commander on turn 3, which is a turn early. Excellent. Next is Arcane Signet, another mana rock that we of course want, 2 generic for an artifact that taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, which is to say, in this deck, blue or black. So it's an untapped 2 mana rock? Sure, of course we're going to run that. Love it. We've seen the Deranged Assistant. It can tap and mill us to make colorless mana for us. We've got another untapped 2-mana rock into Mirror Signet, 2 generic for an artifact that if we pay 1 and tap it, it makes a blue and a black. So we're having to tap 2 mana sources, whatever we're using to cast or to pay into the Signet, and the Signet itself, and we get 2 mana, but it does fix our mana for us, and that's pretty good. We've got the Milliken, which is doing a pretty good imitation of Deranged Assistant. We've already seen the Mind Stone, taps for colorless. We also have this Talisman of Dominance. It's another Marvel art for us, of course, with this Flash Drive Dr. Doom talisman, I guess? Maybe this is Ultron? I guess it's Ultron. Yeah, there you go. This Flash Drive is a Talisman of Dominance. I buy it. So this is a 2 generic mana artifact that taps for 1 colorless, or it taps for a blue or a black if we're willing to let it do a damage to us. When I explain the talismans, what I like to say is we're always willing to let it do damage to us. Because imagine that you need to cast a spell, and you don't need to use colored mana for it. Well, then you just tap this for colorless. But if you do need colored mana for it, then this is able to give that to you. And if you need that mana to cast the spell, then that means taking this damage is the difference between you casting a spell or not. Which means you have to ask yourself the question, would you pay an extra life in order to cast an extra spell? I would do that every turn, because the more spells you cast, the likelier you are to be in a good position to win the game. That's over the course of the game. So if I'm spending 6, 7, or 8 life, I've cast 6, 7, or 8 more spells that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to cast if I hadn't spent that life. So yes, sure, that can put you closer to death or even cause you to die, but it gets you even closer to winning as well, so it's worth it, especially if you're running blue and black. Let's be ambitious. We've seen the Warring Triad, just like Milliken and our Deranged Assistant. We can tap it and mill a card and add a mana, but this one adds 1 of any color, and we can have another player do it. And our Solemn Simulacrum, of course, rampant growths us when it comes into play. That covers our acceleration. Let's talk now about our interaction. These are our spells that I've tagged as removal because they can interact with our opponent's stuff. Rapid Hybridization is an instant for a single blue that destroys a creature, means that creature can't be regenerated, and its controller makes a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token. This is, I imagine this has some kind of connection to Taskmaster. I imagine Taskmaster has trained some weird, monstrous villain henchman. That seems appropriate. We've also got Bitter Triumph, which we've seen. It can blow up a creature or a planeswalker. We haven't seen Drown in the Loch yet. This is, again, Throne of Eldraine, a blue and a black for an instant that says either counter target spell with mana value less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So as long as we've milled someone enough, we can kill any one of their creatures or counter any of their spells. As long as that the number of cards in their graveyard are great enough, we're set either way. Love Drown in the Loch. Feed the Swarm is next. 1 and a black for a sorcery with incredible Secrets of Strixhaven Mystical Archive art. I love the Mystical Archive. That's why I try to make the cards that I'm able to make Mystical Archive printings, those. And right now, as of a time of recording, Secrets of Strixhaven is the most recent set that isn't Marvel Superheroes, so pretty cheap. Feed the Swarm, 1 and a black for a sorcery that destroys a creature or an enchantment an opponent controls, and then we lose life equal to that permanent's mana value, which can cost us quite a bit of life, but it's a way for us in black to deal with enchantments, or just kill any creature. Pretty good either way. Plus, we get to see Grist. Grist, the bug planeswalker. We haven't seen Go for the Throat. It's a classic. 1 and a black for an instant, destroy an artifact creature. Great. It's that simple. Works for everything that isn't an artifact. So yeah, there we go. Imprisoned in the Moon is next. 2 and a blue for an aura that enchants a creature, land, or planeswalker, makes that permanent into a colorless land that taps for colorless mana, and causes that permanent to lose all other card types and abilities. This is my pick for the best card in blue to shut down commanders. We use this on any creature or planeswalker that we want to, or we can shut down lands with this, although there's not really a need to do that. But if our opponent gets their commander targeted with this, and they don't have a way to interact with their own lands or with an enchantment, well, their commander is just going to be making mana for them and not doing any of the cool commander things that they built their deck around it for. So this is a good way to remove problematic, engine-based commanders if we need that. But it's also fine to, like I've used as an example a couple of times, get rid of Galta. Just a big scary creature, turn it into a land. Yeah, it ramps that opponent a little bit, but that's okay. And if we're desperate for card draw, We can enchant one of our own creatures, lands, or planeswalkers with this. And if it's a creature or a planeswalker, now we've got another land we have access to. If we're desperate for acceleration, that is, for mana. Next up, we have the Spots Portal. This is a card that's sweet from the Spider-Man set. 2 and a black for an instant that puts target creature on the bottom of its owner's library, and then we lose 2 life unless we control a villain. Our commander's a villain. Even when our commander turns into something else, he remains a human mercenary villain. Sweet. Spots Portal helps us out a lot and doesn't cost us any life generally, at instant speed. And because it tucks that creature, it means that even though that works against some of what we're doing in this deck, like we want to destroy creatures so that we can make our commander into copies of them, this is something that we can hit and ensure that our opponent is not going to be able to get it back. Or a different opponent who's running Reanimator or stealing things is not going to be able to get access to that card. Or it tucks a commander into its controller's library, which that controller is just going to say, no, I'm going to put it back in the command zone, which means this is better than a kill spell for commanders, because a commander can be indestructible. It doesn't matter if it can't be destroyed if we're putting it in the library, and they're having to, as a replacement effect, put it in the command zone. Yeah, Spots Portal is helpful. Next we have Hostage Taker. This is a theft card for us, but also a removal effect, with amazing Wayne Reynolds art. I love this card from original Ixalan block. 2, a blue, and a black for a 2/3 human pirate that when it enters, we exile another target creature or artifact until this creature leaves the battlefield. And then we can cast that card as long as it remains exiled, and we can use mana of any type to cast that spell. So the Hostage Taker O-rings a artifact or creature. We can steal an opponent's commander with this, and if they choose not to put it in the command zone because they think they can kill our Hostage Taker, we can just cast their commander with our mana perfectly fixed, and now they get another chance to put it in the command zone since it's changing zones again. So probably we don't want to do that. But if we want to steal someone's Panharmonicon, if we want to steal their Soul Ring, maybe their Coveted Jewel, we might have a better way to steal their Coveted Jewel. But yeah, or any of their big creatures, like Galta, one of their engine creatures, maybe they've got an Elishnorn in play that we'd like to have, whatever it may be. Hostage Taker gets something out of the way, and as long as we have a chance to cast it as well, it gets it out of the way, and now it's just ours. Now notably, like some of our creatures, Hostage Taker has an enters trigger. So if we transform Taskmaster into Hostage Taker, that means our commander has all this text, but it's still on the battlefield already. So he's not going to trigger this way when we transform him. He's just going to be a 2/3 creature that's not doing too much else for us. So don't think that Hostage Taker is a good option for us when it comes to turning Taskmaster into one of our creatures. However, Hostage Taker is a good option for us whenever we have a chance to reanimate a creature or otherwise get it into play in some way other than casting it. We've seen Lethal Scheme. Lethal Scheme lets us convoke and connive with every creature we convoked to destroy a creature or planeswalker. And we have Noxious Gearhulk, another creature with an enters trigger, so maybe better than the Hostage Taker for copying or making our commander into a copy of, but still not perfect. It's Noxious Gearhulk, 4 and double black for a 5/4 menace artifact creature construct that when it enters, we may destroy another target creature, and if a creature is destroyed this way, we gain life equal to its toughness. So probably something that's good for us to cast and have it resolve, or just to reanimate, or do both with it. And if we wanted to make our commander into this, it's not going to trigger this ability, because our commander will already be in play and so will not enter. But it will turn our commander into a 5/4 menace creature that is still our commander, and maybe menace with 5 power is enough for us to slip past an opponent's single defender and sneak in for the win with commander damage. You never know. So that covers our interaction section. We have a couple of wraths. We've seen them all. We've both already. Nuclear Fallout, -X/-X until end of turn to every creature, and each player gets that many rad counters. And Singularity Rupture just destroys all creatures, and then we get to choose which players, including us, are going to be milling half their library rounded down. Good either way. And that covers our support sections for the deck. Let's go now to our many supplemental sections, which we've seen a lot of the cards from already in other sections, but we'll look at them now. This is our clones section. These are cards that can become copies of other creatures, just like our commander can. Silent Hall Creeper can become permanently a copy of another creature we control. Evasion of Amonkhet, on the backside, the Lazotep Convert, can enter as a 4/4 black zombie version of any creature card in a graveyard. Doesn't even have to be ours. Chameleon, Master of Disguise, is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human shapeshifter villain that says we can have Chameleon enter as a copy of a creature we control, except his name is Chameleon, Master of Disguise. So this is a great way to make a copy of Taskmaster if we want to. If we are doing some of that, we might as well do a little bit of it, and having another clone creature that can become clones in different ways is pretty good. However, remember, if Chameleon becomes a copy of Taskmaster, Chameleon is still the Chameleon card. He is not the Taskmaster card, which means he's never going to be our commander, even if he's a copy of Taskmaster, so he can't do commander damage. However, Chameleon does have Mayhem for 2 and a blue, which says you can cast this card from your graveyard for 2 and a blue rather than 3 and a blue if you discarded it this turn. Timing rules still apply. So if we have a way to loot or otherwise discard a card during our turn, and Chameleon is the card we choose to discard, maybe because we've convoked something with Lethal Scheme and we're conniving with a creature, Chameleon, whenever we are able to cast a creature, which is at sorcery speed during our main phase, when the stack is empty, we can cast Chameleon for 2 and a blue, thanks to Mayhem, instead of just 3 and a blue. So a nice, sort of a sometimes treat for us here, but it can help. Next up is Lazav, Dimir Mastermind. We already saw Zadok. Lazav is the current leader of the Dimir Guild. Lazav Dimir Mastermind is double blue and double black for a 3/3 legendary shapeshifter with hexproof that says whenever a creature card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, so whenever we mill our opponents, we may have Lazav become a copy of that card, except its name is Lazav Dimir Mastermind, it's legendary in addition to its other types, and it has hexproof and this ability. So anytime creatures go to the graveyard into our opponent's graveyards, any of number of creatures at any time, Lazav has this trigger to become one of those things. And then if an opponent is milling a bunch of cards, we get that trigger for each of the creatures that's going into that graveyard. So we can have Lazav become several things in a row if we feel like it, depending on how we order those triggers. So Lazav is pretty fun. Generally, Lazav is going to just be a hexproof version of whatever the scariest thing in any graveyard is that went to the graveyard since Lazav's been in play, and that's pretty fun. It's also pretty neat to be able to make Taskmaster into a copy of Lazav, because then Taskmaster will become Lazav until the beginning of our next turn. But if Taskmaster as Lazav has this ability Resolve, then if we choose to make Taskmaster become a copy of one of the cards that went to our opponent's graveyard, Taskmaster will become Lazav, because the effect changes the card's name, makes it legendary, and gives it hexproof and this ability. So it will essentially become Lazav, with the exception of its type line, since it will be keeping Taskmaster's type line, and its casting cost, and its power and toughness. Yeah, but the power and toughness and casting cost and type line will change anyway, so that doesn't matter. And remember, this is permanent until it triggers again and we have it change again, which means it overwrites this was Taskmaster as Lazav until the beginning of our next turn. When Taskmaster is a copy of Lazav, if this ability resolves and we choose to make Taskmaster into a copy of something, that our commander is now a card called Lazav Dimir Mastermind, legendary in addition to its other types, has hexproof, and has this ability, and that's permanent. Neat. That does mean, though, if we make him into a copy of Lazav and we resolve this ability, then we have 2 Lazavs and we're going to have to legend rule one of them. But it doesn't matter if we're doing this because Lazav happens to be in our graveyard. Great. Finally, in this section, we have Mirror Hall Mimic. This is a cool card from Crimson Vow. 3 and a blue for a 0/0 spirit that we may have enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. Any creature on the battlefield. Great, we can copy anything we want. It does not say that it's not legendary. So we do have to watch out for that if we're copying one of our own creatures. We don't want to copy something legendary unless we want to just legend rule something. However, maybe we do. I don't know why this would happen. But let's say Lazav has copied someone else's hostage taker. Let's go with that. Nope, this example is not going to work. Never mind. I was going to say, becomes a hostage taker. Mirror Hall Mimic comes in as a legendary hostage taker, gets the enters trigger, but it gets legend ruled, so it goes away, so that it still won't matter. Anyway, but we could, what I'm saying is, have Mirror Hall Mimic come in as a copy of a legendary creature we control in order to just cause it to die. Because maybe we want the death triggers, or maybe we want to disturb it. Disturb is an ability that lets us pay 3 and double blue to cast it transformed, which is as Ghastly Mimicry, an aura that enchants a creature. It does not say a creature we control, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and if Ghastly Mimicry would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, we exile it instead. So the idea behind Ghastly Mimicry is we get the Mirror Hall Mimic, and it's a copy of something. Once it dies, we can disturb it and enchant a creature, one of our opponent's creatures or one of our own, and get a free extra copy of that creature at the start of each of our upkeeps. So if it's on an opponent's creature, that can be dangerous for us. Of course, they can interact with an aura on one of their creatures just as easily as they can interact with one of ours, typically. But of course, if they bounce one of their creatures, and it happens to be the creature that we've enchanted, then Ghastly Mimicry goes to the graveyard, which is to say it goes to exile. If they give that creature hexproof, when we try to target it with Ghastly Mimicry, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, meaning Ghastly Mimicry will not resolve properly, and it will be exiled. And if they give their creature protection from blue, then Ghastly Mimicry will fall off and go to exile, etc. So sometimes it's better to put it on one of our creatures, but not always. So it's just a nice way to produce additional token copies of whatever creature we think is coolest and is likeliest to keep giving us copies of itself each turn after we've had a clone come in. Neat. And that covers our clones section. Let's go now to our theft section. Let's see about all the ways that we have to steal from our opponents. Hostage Taker can steal something from our opponents by removing it, exiling it until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield, and as long as we can cast it from exile before the Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield, now it's ours. Great. Extract from Darkness has everyone mill 2, and then we get to put a creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under our control. Geth lets us put an artifact or creature to the battlefield under our control tapped, and it's from an opponent's graveyard. And we haven't seen Rexiel, the Risen Deep. This is a sweet card. 3 and double blue and a black for a 5/8 legendary Kraken with Island Walk and Swamp Walk, meaning if our defending player, when we attack with Rexiel, controls any swamps or any islands, Rexiel cannot be blocked. So a weird version of kind of old Evasion, these land walk abilities, but sweet as something that we can have our commander use, especially as a 5/8. And whenever Rexiel deals combat damage to a player, we may cast target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost, and if that spell would be put into a graveyard, we exile it instead. So Rexiel lets us flash back an instant or sorcery from the defending player's graveyard, and if that defending player is running any islands or swamps, they're not going to be able to stop us from doing it unless they remove Rexiel before we can hit, or remove Taskmaster as Rexiel before he can hit. And if our opponent's running islands or swamps, they've probably got sweet instants and sorceries in the form of, I don't know, draw spells and removal spells, whatever it may be. That's neat. And that is our theft section. Let's talk about the little bit of drain we have in this deck. These are just small ways that we have to do damage to our opponents beyond just, combat damage. So Criddle, of course, when Criddle deals combat damage to a player, that player will lose a life, mill a card, and we gain a life and we scry one. That's fine. Nuclear Fallout has our opponents get rad counters, as do we, and those rad counters can cause players to lose life whenever they come off of the player. And Sir Conrad, whenever we have any creature go to any graveyard, or creatures leave our graveyard, Sir Conrad's going to do damage to each opponent. Yeah, that is our drain section, even though Sir Conrad is technically not drained, it's burn. Next we have our payoffs section. These are all cards that reward us for doing what we were going to do anyway. So Chameleon rewards us for discarding cards, one of the things we're doing by having Mayhem. Lazav rewards us for having creatures go to the graveyard in our opponent's graveyards, which is to say, rewards us for milling our opponents. Sir Conrad rewards us for having any creatures go anywhere close to the graveyard, basically. Any creature go into the graveyard, especially from somewhere other than the battlefield, which is us milling again by doing damage. And we also have Arden the Usurper from the Final Fantasy set. 5 and triple black is extremely expensive, but a good thing for us to be able to copy with Taskmaster or just to reanimate. This is a 4/4 legendary human or elder human noble that says demons we control have menace, lifelink, and haste. How many demons are we running in this deck? It looks like 0. Well, why do we have Arden then? Because Arden has Star Scourge. At the beginning of combat on your turn, exile up to 1 target creature card from a graveyard. Again, doesn't have to be ours. If we exiled a card this way, we make a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 5/5 black demon. And those demons, as long as Arden is in play, have menace, lifelink, and haste. Pretty good. So it's going to have all of the abilities that creature card has. It's just going to be a 5/5 black demon in addition, or instead of whatever color type and power and toughness it had. So what's really cool about Arden is this. Check this out. Let's say Arden goes to our graveyard, and we go to our first main phase with Taskmaster in play. We have Taskmaster become a copy of Arden. Then we go to combat on our turn, and at the beginning of combat, Taskmaster's ability, this ability, is going to trigger. We exile the original Arden from our graveyard. Now Arden will enter the battlefield as a 5/5 black demon token that is otherwise this whole thing. That Arden will have menace, lifelink, and haste, not just because Taskmaster is currently giving it to him, but because Arden is a demon and has the text, demons you control have menace, lifelink, and haste. So by our next turn, when Taskmaster's ability is worn off and he's just back to being regular old Taskmaster, we'll still have this 5/5 token demon copy of Arden in play, giving all demons, including itself, menace, lifelink, and haste, and doing this for us every turn. So we can get Arden into play as a token copy without even ever having to cast him, by letting our commander become Arden and then use its ability on Arden from the graveyard. It's kind of a weird trick, but it's a pretty sweet one. It is worth noting that there's a little bit of a non-bow to this because it does exile the cards in the graveyard, which means we can't then have them in the graveyard for us to turn Taskmaster into. But that's okay, because we're going to be selecting from so many different cards the same way we're selecting for Taskmaster. We'll be selecting for Arden to turn the best creatures we can into 5/5 demons that, in addition to whatever else they have menace, lifelink, and haste. Nice. And those are our payoffs. Let's go now to our synergy section. These are all cards that help us out based on sort of the thing we're already doing, rather than rewarding us for it, the way that we have with our payoffs cards. So for example, Cruel Somnophage, its power and toughness are based on the number of creature cards in all graveyards, whereas Consuming Aberrations, power and toughness are based on the number of creature cards, or number of total cards, creature and otherwise, in our opponent's graveyards. Drown in the Loch counts the number of cards in the graveyard of the controller of the spell we're trying to counter, or the controller of the creature we're trying to kill. The Ancient One and the Warring Triad both want us to have 8 cards in our graveyard. The Ancient One wants 8 permanents or more. The Warring Triad wants at least 8 cards of any kind. And we also have a couple of other cool ones in this section. Criminal Past is a background. I mentioned these a little bit earlier. These are from the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate set, which is a sweet set that I am currently in the process of building a commander deck for every legend from. So if you're interested in that, check out the video's description to see a playlist for all the ones that I've completed so far, that of course will update whenever you find this video. So there you go. The way these backgrounds work is they are legendary enchantments that add an ability, or add abilities, to our commander. So this is 2 and a black for a legendary enchantment background that gives our commander menace, and this creature gets +X+O, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So this rewards us for having more and more creatures in our graveyard, not just because we can copy them with our commander, but because no matter what form Taskmaster is taking, whether Taskmaster is himself or is cosplaying as some other creature, Criminal Past will always give Taskmaster, in whatever form, menace and a power bonus equal to the number of creature cards in our graveyard. Criminal Past is great for this. We also have Night Howler. This is 1 and double black for a 0/0 enchantment creature horror with Bestow for 2 and 2 black. So the way Bestow works is we can cast this as an alternate casting cost. Rather than paying one and double black, we can pay 2 and double black, and Night Howler is an aura with enchant creature. That's what it is on the stack, and when it resolves, it will become that aura, enchanting the creature that we chose. If that creature dies or is otherwise removed and Night Howler would fall off, it falls off and becomes a creature when it's not attached. Likewise, if we target a creature with it when it's an aura, when we're bestowing it, and that creature gets removed before Night Howler enters the battlefield, Night Howler will enter the battlefield as a creature rather than an aura. So it's sort of no feel bad to this, even if you're trying to make it into an aura. And it's great for us to be able to do so because it and the enchanted creature each get +X/+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So this is useful in 3 ways. We can play this as a creature, and it's big and gets bigger, much like our Consuming Aberration and Cruel Somnophage does. We can play this as an aura, putting it on our commander probably, and make our commander bigger and bigger and bigger, sort of the way that Criminal Past background does, but affecting the toughness as well. Or we can use our commander to become a copy of Night Howler, and it becomes just power and toughness equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards, since it's a 0/0 with this ability. So either way we do it, pretty sweet. It is worth noting though, if Night Howler is on the battlefield as an aura, Taskmaster can't become a copy of it, because Taskmaster can only copy creatures, and Night Howler at that point is not a creature. But if whatever it's enchanting happens to die or be exiled or bounced or whatever, Night Howler will fall off, and now it is a valid target for Taskmaster's ability. That's how that works. Finally, we've got Wonder in this section, which just gives us a sweet ability. This is a 2/2 incarnation for 3 and a blue. It flies, and it says as long as it's in our graveyard and we control an island, doesn't even say a basic island, creatures we control have flying. So typically, Wonder, with its beautiful Rebecca Gay art, is something we just want in our graveyard. If it's in our hand, sure, we can cast it or we can discard it, but if we're casting it, we're probably just using it to block or swing in with a bad attack because we want it to go to the graveyard, not because we can copy it with Taskmaster, just because when it's in the graveyard, it is giving all of our board flying as long as we control an island. And that's in addition to being one more creature in our graveyard that is helping us out for things like Criminal Past and Night Howler and the Ancient One, that sort of thing. So yeah, Wonder is great for us. And that covers our synergy section. Let's go now to our pump section. These are all ways of making our creatures bigger, and we've seen all but one of them. Criminal Past can make our commander makes our commander have menace and a power bonus equal to the number of creature cards in our graveyard. Night Howler, if it is bestowed, gives a power and toughness bonus equal to the number of creatures and cards in all graveyards. And Lethal Scheme gives every creature that convokes it a connive, which could, if we put a non-land card into the graveyard when we connive with that creature, could give it a +1/+1 counter. We also have another background, which is Agent of the Shadow Thieves. 1 and a black for a legendary background that says commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, meaning that player has the most, or has the, it has either the most life among all our opponents or is tied for the most life among our opponents. We don't count ourselves in this. They're just, you know, they're the most life or tied for the most life among our opponents. If that's the person our commander's attacking, our commander gets a 1/1 counter and Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. Great. Protection for our commander, a little bit of pseudo evasion sometimes with Death Touch, and that counter, which we're going to get to keep that no matter what form our commander takes or happens to be in at that moment. Great. That is our pump section. Let's go now to our protection. We've seen several of these. So these protect our things and ourselves. Agent of the Shadow Thieves helps our commander by making them indestructible when we attack, as long as we're attacking the opponent that, among our opponents, has or is tied for the greatest life. Drown in the Loch is a protection spell because it's a counter spell if we need it to be. Counter spells are a form of removal, but I think of them more as a form of protection because typically we're trying to stop a threat or stop something that's threatening us. And if we see an Angel of Suffering, it protects us from taking damage. It just forces us to mill twice as many cards as the damage we would have taken, which is good and bad for us. But mostly in this deck, it's good. Next, we have Swiftfoot Boots. The Swifties are 2 generic for an equipment that equips for 1 and gives the equipped creature hexproof and haste. Haste doesn't protect it, but is pretty nice for us. Hexproof does protect that creature, so putting this on our commander, it's going to remain equipped no matter what form our commander takes, and so good, it just helps us stay safe. And Whisper Silk Cloak is 3 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 2, so it costs 1 more both to cast and to equip, but it gives the equipped creature Unblockable and Shroud. Shroud is the same as Hexproof, but it also means that creature is not able to be targeted by spells or abilities we control. So it can get in the way of things like spells of ours that we might want to target our own creatures, but usually we're not casting those in this deck for our commander. We put Whisper Silk Cloak on Taskmaster, make him into the biggest, scariest thing in play, and just go to town. And now he's protected from our opponent's stuff and from their blockers. It's also worth noting that things like the backgrounds, they just grant our commander an ability. They don't target our commander to do so, meaning Whisper Silk Cloak doesn't prevent the benefits of backgrounds. Pretty good. That's our protection section. We have a section of evasion. We have seen all the cards in this. These are ways to give particularly Taskmaster, but any of our creatures, the ability to attack without necessarily being blocked. Key to the City, Criddle, Whisper Silk Cloak, all give unblockable. So does Kaito. Criminal Past gives our commander Menace, and Wonder gives all of our creatures flying as long as it's in our graveyard and we control an island. Nice. We also have a very small recursion section. We've already seen both of these. Victimize can bring a creature, or can bring 2 creature cards in our graveyard back to the battlefield, and Extract from Darkness can bring a creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under our control. So it can be ours or it could be an opponent's. So that's why it's in the theft section and the recursion section for us. And just to check in with it, we have this token section. These are the cards that can make tokens for us. I just like to always check where can we get other things that aren't just the creatures in our deck that serve as creatures. So Kaito, as a -2, and as part of his emblem, makes us 2/1 blue ninja creature tokens. Mirror Hall Mimic can, on its backside as Ghastly Mimicry, be a factory for copies of whatever this is enchanting, and Arden can reanimate creatures in the form of exiling them and making a 5/5 black demon creature token copy of them. So yeah, not exactly the same as tokens in the usual sense. It's more of a like recursion, reanimation, theft effect, but yeah, they are token creatures, so it belongs in this section. And so there you go. And that is every spell we have in our deck. As usual, we're going to go over our land base now, starting with our basics. We have 9 islands and 10 swamps. These are not the only blue and black sources we have in the deck, but almost 20 basic lands, and they're all, of course, the Marvel Superheroes art. So yeah, this is a solid mix for us. We could go a little harder into black and less into blue, but I like to sort of make it a little squidgier, you know, trying to and equalize the lands a little bit more, especially if we have a few cards that are highly pipped in our minority color, and blue is not really much of a minority color for us, just so that we never are hurting for the right color of mana when we cast our commander. So yeah, 19 basics. But those aren't the only cards in our land base with basic types. For example, we have Fetid Pools. We're using the Marvel Superheroes printing for it. This is an island swamp, so it's a land with both basic types. So relevant for us, it's not a basic land, but it does have these types, which are important for us, because if this is in play and Wonder is in our graveyard, then we do control an island. Great. It enters tapped because it's got both types, and it has cycling for 2, meaning we can pay 2 and discard it from our hand to draw a card. It's much like with the Mind Stone, this is something we only do if we're sort of desperate for a land or for a draw early game, or if it's late game and we just don't need any more lands. We can trade it in. Great. We also have Fetid Pools as a dual type land because we're running Drowned Catacomb. This is a check land. It taps for blue or black, and it enters tapped unless we control an island or a swamp. You'll notice Fetid Pools is an island and a swamp, so it will make this come in untapped. We have a total of 21 cards in this deck that are either basic or have basic types, meaning 21 different cards to make Drowned Catacomb come in untapped, among other things. So I like to run check lands because they're quite inexpensive and often serve as untapped duels for us. If you wanted to upgrade this, I might say the slow land Shipwreck Marsh is a good option for you. At time of recording, Secrets of Strixhaven recently came out, and they've started reprinting the slow lands in that set. So I expect that later this year, Reality Fracture is going to give us the allied color slow lands. So if we get Shipwreck Marsh back down to a reasonable price, thanks to that reprint, I would suggest taking out one of your basics and putting it in as well. But if you really want to just treat it as an upgrade, you can certainly upgrade Drowned Catacomb to that slow land. Just like with Fetid Pools, you could upgrade it to Watery Grave, the shock land. Both of these are more expensive than the cards I'm offering, and they are good, don't get me wrong, but I think that this is a solid land base on its own. We're running Restless Reef as well. This is a sweet creature land from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It comes in tapped, and it taps for blue or black, so it's already solid. It's a tap land for us. But we can also pay 2 a blue and a black, and until end of turn, it becomes a 4/4 blue and black shark creature with death touch that is still a land. So this is a sweet creature land. Creature lands are so much fun to run, and they're worth running for lots of reasons. You know, a bonus creature, it's something that can be sneaky for your opponents as a sneaky blocker. You never know what you'll need. But Restless Reef, also, whenever it attacks, target player mills 4 cards. So this is one more source of mill for us, and it doesn't even have to be the defending player. It can hit us too. So it's mill and graveyard filling for us, in addition to being a 4/4 death toucher. Great. We're running Darkwater Catacombs as well. This is a filter land. It is the same as our Dimir Signet. Pay 1 and tap it, and we get a blue and a black. So everything I said about the Signet is good here too. I wish that the other version of these filter lands was not so expensive. I don't remember what it's called, but usually I run both filter lands if I can. And I usually don't if it's too expensive, and for this one it is. But yeah, this is totally fine for our filter lands. We've also got these classic 4 fixing lands. Of course, we're running Command Tower. It's got the same text as Arcane Signet. Taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity, so blue or black in this deck. So it's an untapped duel at all times. That's great. We would run a tapped duel like we are doing with Restless Reef and with Path of Ancestry. It's a tap land with the same text as Command Tower, so it's already not as good as Command Tower since it comes in tapped, but it makes the same mana. And when we use its mana to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with our commander, we get a free scry, which means any human that we cast in our deck, one of which already is a villain, of course, will give us a scry. And that includes Taskmaster himself, since of course he shares types with himself. Great. Next up, Myriad Landscape. This is a tap land that taps for colorless, or if we pay 2, tap and sack it, we can search our library for up to 2 basic land cards that share a land type with each other. That is to say, 2 basic islands or 2 basic swamps. Then we get to put them on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. So even though those lands come in tapped, and so does Myriad Landscape, and it costs us mana to tap it, to crack it, this is one land drop that eventually turns into 2 lands in play, so it is slow acceleration, if you'll pardon the oxymoron, and it's worth doing in a deck that is not running green, so we don't have a lot of extra sources for additional acceleration. Similarly is Temple of the False God. It's no one's favorite land, but it taps for double colorless, so it's a soul land, like Soul Ring. It doesn't even come in tapped. We just don't have the ability to activate it unless we have at least 4 other lands, so 5 or more, including itself. So even though this doesn't accelerate us early game, which admittedly is when we most want to accelerate, it does accelerate us mid and late game, and getting extra mana is always good for us. The fact that this might be, you know, if our opening hand is a Rogue's Passage and a Temple of the False God and no other mana, yeah, we want to mulligan that. But if this is able to come out on turn 5 and jump us from making 4 mana to making 6, that's already very good. Yeah, Temple of the False God, totally solid for decks of a power level like this one and the ones I build on this channel. We're running Underground River as well. This is a pain land. That is to say, it is the same as our Talisman of Hierarchy, just on a land. Taps for colorless or a blue or a black if we're willing to let it do a damage to us. Everything I said about the Talisman is just as true here, or even more true because it's in our land base. We didn't even have to pay for it. So great. Love this as an untapped duel, essentially. We've got a Choked Estuary as well. This is a reveal land. As it enters, we can either reveal an island or swamp card from our hand, and if we don't, it comes in tapped, and either way it makes blue or black. So this is like a check land, but we have to have the island or swamp in our hand when we play this. So either we're playing this early and it comes in as a tap land, which is fine, or we're playing it not as early probably, and it's coming in as an untapped duel, and that's great. If you were to want to upgrade this, and I wouldn't blame you, it's worth upgrading, Gloomlake Verge, one of the Verge lands from Duskmourn and Aetherdrift, I think that's a Duskmourn one, would be great. Those are getting played a lot in Standard right now, so not cheap, but yeah, it's an option. Next is Temple of Deceit. This is a tap land, taps for both of our colors, and when it comes in, scry 1. I love the temples. They are perennially reprinted. They're in Foundations right now, thanks to the starter collection, and they're great. They give us a little card selection. Why not? If you want to upgrade this and spend more money, don't get me wrong, it would be better to run Undercity Sewers, the Surveil land, but it is a lot more money. And Temple of Deceit is just totally fine as a tapped dual land that gives us a little upside. Why not? Finally, in this section, we have Sunken Hollow. It's an island swamp, just like our Bicycle land, so it's a Tango land, because it comes in tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands. That's great. It's sort of like a slow land, but the lands that it counts in order for it to come in untapped have to be basics. We've got 19 basics in the library, so this is unlikely, or it's not unlikely to be an untapped duel for us. Pretty solid. Finally, we've got 7 utility lands. We're going to start with Dakmor Salvage. This is a land that comes in tapped and taps for black and has Dredge 2. If you are not familiar with the Dredge mechanic, you're lucky. Dredge is a little bit of a mess, but it's good in this deck. It helps us a lot. Dredge basically says, if Dakmor Salvage is in our graveyard, anytime we would draw a card, instead we can mill 2 cards and put Dakmor Salvage from our graveyard into our hand. So to put it another way, while this is in our graveyard, if we want, every time we would draw, we don't draw off the top of our library, we draw our Dakmor Salvage into our hand from our graveyard, and we mill 2 cards. So this is solid for us. It gives us a way to have something we can throw away, or that ends up in our graveyard somehow, so that we can get a little bit of extra mill just sitting in our land base. Even if this only happens once. If we mill this and we dredge 2 once, not only does that mean a little extra mill for us, but we milled away a land that we don't have any other way of getting back, but Dakmor Salvage lets us get it back for us. But if we have a way to also discard it, like conniving away a land is not ideal because it doesn't put counters on things, but if we were to do that, we could then dredge with it again. It's a possibility. So yeah, nice small amount of help for us. Next we have Demolition Field. This is an interesting one. I like to put this in my decks because the kind of decks I build are of a power level that usually ends up in a pod where players are not really interested in having their lands messed with. Not just mass land denial, but, any kind of land destruction at all. And that's fine. Not everyone wants that in their experience of Commander, and that's okay. But you do have to have an answer for problematic non-basics. For example, if someone is running a Rogue's Passage and making their giant Voltron commander unblockable, or someone's running, like a friend of mine, a Glacial Chasm and stopping you from doing any damage to them. If they are empowering their game plan or disempowering yours with a land, that land is a threat, and in Magic, threats have answers. I think Demolition Field is an excellent answer, especially since it's just a one of in a 100-card deck, for when that happens to you. It is an untapped land that taps for colorless, or if we pay 2, tap, and sack it, we can destroy a non-basic land that an opponent controls, and then that opponent gets to search their library for a basic and put it on the battlefield untapped. And so do we. So we replace the demo field, they replace the non-basic that we destroyed, assuming of course we both have basics left in our library, and those basics even come in untapped. So no one's down a land, and no one's off mana, unless of course the land we were blowing up was something like a Gaia's Cradle, in which case that is a threat of its own, so that's reasonable. But at least they do have a land that produces a mana, and it's in whatever color they may have left in their library that they want. That's fine. Even the kind of pods that don't want any kind of land destruction typically don't have a problem with Demolition Field. Next up is Gaia Reach Sanitarium, a legendary land that taps for colorless, or if we pay 2 and tap it, everyone draws a card and then discards a card. So like I've mentioned a couple of times, looting, drawing and discarding, is for most people just card selection. But for us, it fills our graveyard. And with this, it fills every graveyard. So this is giving everyone a little bit of a benefit, but it's giving us the most benefit. That's pretty nice for just 2 mana and tapping the Sanitarium. Next, we have Jador Aristocratic Capital. This is a town land that comes in tapped and taps for blue, but it also has a built-in adventure, meaning once we cast the adventure, when it goes to exile, we can play Jador as our land drop, either that turn or a later turn, whenever we have a land drop to make. So kind of neat to see in Final Fantasy these lands that have adventures on them. The adventure is Overture. For 4 and double blue, we get a sorcery adventure that has target player mill half their library rounded up. So in our land base, a sneaky additional source of sweet mill. That's just really cool to be able to see. Most of the time, we're just getting Jador and having it come in as a tapped blue source, but this is pretty sweet if we can hang on to it, or if we draw it late enough that this can give us a lot of value. Next, we have Nephalia Drownyard, doing a Gaia Reach Sanitarium sort of imitation. This is a land that taps for colorless, or if we pay 1 blue and a black and tap it, then target player mills 3 cards. So that's more of a mana investment, but it does do more cards. There's no card selection involved, and it's only 1 player, but it is 3 cards, and we can hit ourselves with it. Helps us as a good option. So yeah, there we go. Next, we have Port of Carfell, one of these amazing lands from Kaldheim. I love Kaldheim. This is a tap land that taps for blue, or we can pay a lot of mana, 3 blue and double black, and tap and sack Port of Carfell. And if we do that, we mill 4 cards and return a creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So this is a reanimate spell with a free mill 4 attached to it, and all it costs us is, 7 mana, that's true, plus sacrificing the land that lets us do it. But yeah, 6 mana here plus tapping the port, so that's like 7. So yeah, it's expensive, but it's a very big effect that we get, and it's a sweet one, especially in this deck. Finally, we've got a Rogue's Passage. This is a land that comes in untapped, taps for colorless, or if we pay 4 and tap it, target creature can't be blocked this turn. Everything I said before about the Key to the City is true about Rogue's Passage. We can use this for our own creatures, especially our commander. We can use this to make a deal with an opponent and play this politically and maybe make their creature unblockable if they're willing to make a deal with us, or we can play it strategically and make creatures unblockable without needing their controller's consent, or like agreement, or making a deal with them. So yeah, Rogue's Passage is sweet and powerful for us, especially in our deck. Very inexpensive. To activate, a little expensive, 5 mana, 4 and the Rogue's Passage itself, but that's totally fine, especially if we need it. Rogue's Passage can win you games. Great. And that sums it up. Again, I'm releasing new Marvel Superheroes Commander decks every Thursday through mid-August when the Hobbit set drops, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a specific commander or a style of deck. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to support what I do here, make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified when my videos go live, consider becoming a member of this channel on YouTube, or joining my Patreon at patreon.com/secondmonitormagic. And remember, most of all, that magic is fun. You should play more Magic.